Welcome to today's Explainer. We're taking a truly fascinating macro to micro journey today, scaling all the way from the sheer vastness of global forests right down to the practicalities of your own driveway. You know, we often look at a tree and just see the leaves and the trunk, but today we're going to trace the entire life cycle of trees, wood, and organic waste. We want to see exactly how our micro habits at home connect directly to the macro environment. Here's a quick look at our roadmap. We're starting with global tree biology, then moving into the impacts of deforestation. From there, we'll zoom right into your neighborhood to talk about home landscaping and managing yard waste, before finally tackling paper recycling and major residential waste disposal. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the biology of trees. We're going to explore the grand scale of nature here. To really understand our resources, we first have to look at the majestic biology of trees and how they anchor our global ecosystem. Now, beneath the soil, a tree's life is intensely collaborative. It's actually pretty mind-blowing. Through a natural grafting process called inosculation, some trees actually interconnect their root systems to form a living colony. Partnering with mycorrhizal fungi, they create these vast underground networks to share resources. They're literally transferring nutrients and even chemical signals from one place to another. Think about this. There are a staggering 3.04 trillion trees on Earth, but we see a massive concentration in specific zones. The data shows that 46% of all trees are located in the tropics and subtropics, 24% are in the coniferous boreal forests of the far north, and 20% are in temperate zones. And that heavy concentration in the tropics? Well, that brings us to a pretty stark reality. So, the crucial point we need to highlight is this exact number right here, 20%. This represents a very stark reality about our global forests and what happens when they're cleared on a massive scale. Which leads us right into Section 2, the threat of deforestation, and the global impact of clearing those forests. Let's look at the broader, impartial data regarding global land use. So why are we clearing all this land? Primarily, it's for farming and ranching, as well as harvesting lumber and making space for urbanization. But the impacts are incredibly severe. Without root systems to hold the earth together, soil erosion runs rampant, and vital animal habitats are completely destroyed. And remember that 20% figure we just mentioned? It directly reflects the greenhouse gas emissions caused specifically by tropical deforestation. When trees are burned or rot away, all that carbon they've sequestered is released right back into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. Let's pivot a bit and look at Section 3, landscaping your own yard. We're bringing the forest home now. Deforestation obviously happens on a global scale, but managing resources starts at home, which brings us to your own backyard. When you're choosing what to plant, there's actually a massive functional difference to consider. Deciduous trees like maples or oaks shed their leaves seasonally. Functionally, this is great because they offer wonderful shade in the summer, but then they drop their leaves to allow warming winter sunlight to reach your home. Evergreens, on the flip side, retain their foliage year-round. They are the absolute backbone if you want continuous privacy screening, plus they require way less seasonal cleanup. Okay, before we move on, I have to share this wild botanical fact with you. Not all shedding is just individual leaves. There's a process called cladoptopsis, which shows us that some unique species, like the pond cypress, actually shed entire small leafy shoots annually. Nature always has a few fascinating exceptions to the rules, right? Moving right along to Section 4, managing your yard waste. Basically, dealing with all that organic debris. Once you've planted those beautiful trees, you have to maintain them, which leads us straight to responsible yard waste disposal. You essentially have three main avenues for your yard waste. Municipal pickup is super convenient, but it comes with strict size limits and tight schedules. Private services are unmatched if you've got major post-storm debris, though they will definitely cost you more. Finally, composting is highly sustainable. It turns organic matter into nutrient-rich soil and keeps it out of landfills. But, of course, it does require a bit of space and some elbow grease. Now, if you're using municipal green bins, you absolutely have to keep these prohibited contaminants out. Things like soil, rocks, treated lumber, plastics, and regular food waste can completely ruin a municipal composting batch or even damage their processing equipment. Sorting your debris properly is really the very first step in successful waste management. That takes us right inside the house for Section 5, the paper recycling process, where we'll look at transforming waste back into resources. Let's see how the wood products we consume, specifically paper, are given a second life. You know, just as the tree's xylem and phloem highly structure the transport of water and nutrients up a trunk, This four-step process transports discarded paper right back into a usable resource. It starts with sorting, then moves to pulping and de-inking, where the paper is broken down into a fibrous slurry. Next up is a rigorous screening to remove things like staples or plastics, and finally, the purified pulp is pressed and dried into brand new sheets of paper.
So, why does all this matter? Well, it's pretty simple. Efficient home recycling directly reduces our demand for virgin timber. It saves immense amounts of water and energy, and it keeps perfectly viable materials out of the landfill. It perfectly links our micro-habits at the recycling bin right back to the macro preservation of those global forests we talked about earlier. Finally, we arrive at Section 6, Tackling Major Home Cleanup. We are getting into the heavy-duty waste realities now. This is the heaviest scale of home sustainability, dealing with major renovation debris and massive cleanouts. Picture this. You're faced with a literal mountain of waste after a home renovation. You have to weigh your options carefully. Professional junk removal handles all the heavy lifting and ensures eco-friendly disposal. But yes, it comes at a premium. Conversely, a DIY dump run might seem a whole lot cheaper upfront, but you've got to factor in truck rentals, fuel, dump fees, and the massive physical and time costs of doing it yourself. If you do decide to rent a dumpster, following these exact steps ensures you don't overpay or end up with a huge logistical headache in your driveway. Always assess your volume first. When scheduling the delivery, make sure you have a clear, flat surface prepared. And when you're actually loading it up, put your heavy items at the bottom to keep the weight evenly distributed. Choosing the right size is absolutely critical when mapping out your mess. A 10-yard bin is great for a small bathroom demo. A 20-yard bin hits the sweet spot for roofing or large landscaping projects. And a 30-yard bin, that's for whole home cleanouts. A quick pro tip for you, always overestimate slightly. Dense materials like concrete or dirt will max out a bin's weight limit incredibly fast, sometimes even if the bin is only half full by volume. Just like with your yard waste, dumpsters have very strict rules. Tossing items like hazardous chemicals, e-waste, tires, or appliances into a standard roll-off bin can lead to heavy environmental fines. Or worse, the rental company might outright reject your pickup. Always check with your provider on how to handle these specialty items safely. There's a quote from our source material that I absolutely love. It perfectly summarizes that choosing the right dumpster size, and really proper waste management as a whole, is truly about efficiency, environmental responsibility, and giving yourself peace of mind. We've scaled all the way from the majesty and biology of the world's forests, down through the recycling loop, and right into the junk in our own homes. Seeing this entire interconnected life cycle leaves us with one final essential question to think about for your next project. How will your everyday choices help protect and sustain the life cycle of our natural resources? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this gives you a whole new perspective the next time you step out into your yard.